An Italian-born artist best known for his exquisite Renaissance technique and neoclassical imagery, and considered a forerunner of postmodernism in 1980s painting, Carlo Maria Mariani died in New York on November 19 from complications from multiple myeloma. He was 90 years old. A central figure of the Roman avant-garde of the 1970s, associated with conceptual art and performative works, Mariani gained international fame in the early 1980s for his strange and often contradictory paintings, with allusions to historical works by Renaissance artists including Leonardo, Raphael, and Dürer, as well as modernists such as Picasso, Calder, Brancusi, and especially Duchamp. These allusions were often combined in the same composition. Mariani used his brilliant academic skills in painting and drawing to create classical heads and archetypal figures, androgynous beings with idealized features, usually inspired by ancient Greco-Roman painting and sculpture. Mariani viewed these schematic forms as symbols of beauty in constant conflict with the harsh realities of modern life. The figures often float freely in an infinite space that the artist called the cosmic realm, inspired in part by the ethereal fields of color in the paintings of Mark Rothko, one of his favorite artists. Despite the retro techniques, mythological subjects, and archaic look of his compositions, Mariani has always maintained that his work has little to do with nostalgia, but rather a ballsy, running commentary on the present day. Among Mariani's best-known works are large-scale works featuring portraits of influential figures in the art world, such as Constellation of the Lion, 1981, held in the collection of the National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art in Rome. This canvas depicts with almost photographic accuracy prominent members of the Italian avant-garde of the 1980s, including artists Francesco Clemente, Sandro Chia, and Luigi Ontani, curators Italo Musa, Achille Bonito Oliva, and dealers Gian Enzo Sperone and Mario Diacono gathered around the artist in an imaginary symposium on Mount Parnassus. Mariani was born in Rome's Trastevere neighborhood in 1931, at the same time that his older brother, also named Carlo and 7 years older than him, contracted fatal meningitis. In these circumstances, the future artist, growing up as an only child, keenly felt the transience of life. He later sought to convey through art a sense of melancholy in contemplation of the infinite universe. One of his most vivid childhood memories was watching a neighbor, a restorer, repairing an ancient copy of Caravaggio's Medusa. This image haunted him and eventually appeared in a number of his mature works. In the 1950s, he studied at the Academy of Fine Arts in Rome, where he absorbed the lessons of Titian and Rubens, and was particularly fond of the works of Tintoretto and Modigliani. The artist's early work conformed to the metaphysical school of Italian painting, exemplified by Giorgio Morandi and Carlo Carra. Mariani also immersed himself in literature, focusing on Goethe, Baudelaire, Kierkegaard, and Carl Gustav Jung. The devastation and suffering brought about by World War II, and especially the destruction of a number of buildings in Rome by American bombing, also had an indelible impact on the young artist. Shortly after graduating from the academy, Mariani met his first wife, a Danish artist who had studied in Rome, and left with her for Denmark, where he lived for 2 years. During this time, he had a solo exhibition at the Admiralgade Gallery in Copenhagen in 1958. In the 1960s, after returning to Rome, Mariani made his living by creating and designing mosaics, mostly on prestigious commissions from the Catholic Church. Mariani did not consider himself particularly religious, although he appreciated the opulence of Catholic rituals. Intellectually, he was always more attracted to the Greco-Roman pantheon, its myths and rituals. Returning to painting in the early 1970s, he adopted a form of sophisticated figurativeness with elements of pop art. Subsequently, in the mid-70s, he worked on a series of large-scale paintings of body fragments that attracted considerable attention from the Italian avant-garde. These hyper-realistic oil paintings were associated with the emerging photorealist movement, although Mariani never used photographic projections or other techniques typical of the genre. During this period, he wrote several books of poems, as yet unpublished, which he illustrated with fine engravings made from works of ancient art. When his work began to attract attention in Europe in the mid-1970s, Mariani delved into art historical research, which led him to become fascinated by the then-neglected field of neoclassical art and the connections between 18th and 19th century artists, including Anton Raphael Mengs and Angelica Kauffmann, and writers such as the Bronte sisters. Rather than copying their work, Mariani has adopted the techniques of these artists and incorporated them into her unique contemporary vision. As a sort of art history forensic artist, Mariani created or recreated from surviving written descriptions works by these and other artists that had been lost to the ravages of time. Mariani's technical skill, as well as his ability to reinterpret the past, sometimes confounded his critics, as well as some avant-garde colleagues who believed that the artist was engaged in a reactionary form of anachronistic painting that disavowed or at least ignored the revolutionary tenets of modernism. Mariani, however, has always insisted that his work is a conceptual endeavor that seeks to advance the cause of painting, to elevate the radical nature of art, and the infinite, multifaceted possibilities of art historical research. By the 1980s, Mariani had caused a stir with his complex and disturbing monumental figurative compositions, each a stunning combination of old masters' techniques and new, esoteric imagery that demanded to be read as modern allegory. In the 1980s, moreover, he began to advocate that the purpose of art today, including his own, should offer an alternative or antidote to mass media and counter the pandering, if not degrading, effects of the combination of technology and entertainment that seems to define contemporary culture. In 1986, Mariani met Carol Lane, an American art director who lived in Rome and worked for the photographer Richard Avedon. She eventually became Mariani's curator and advisor. The couple married in 1990, and after keeping their home in Italy, they gradually moved to New York City and Bridgehampton, New York. The 1990s were a time of honors for Mariani. In 1990, he represented Italy for the third time at the Venice Biennale, and in 1998, he received the prestigious Antonio Feltrinelli Prize for Lifetime Achievement in Painting. In the United States, Mariani, who spoke no English, was glad for the relative isolation, the escape from the hustle and bustle of the art world that often distracted him from his work. Over the ensuing decades, he developed a unique visual vocabulary and a unique worldview in a wide range of paintings, drawings, and prints. As he once told me, "I try to invent a world I can enter to escape reality, if only for the time I am painting or drawing." Mariani's work has been the subject of several major museum exhibitions, including the touring retrospective Utopia Now, which debuted at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art in 1992 and traveled to Mathildenhof Darmstadt in Germany. A survey of his work was presented at the Frye Art Museum, Seattle in 1999, and a retrospective was held at the Center for Contemporary Italian Art, Foligno, Italy in 2013. His work has been featured in numerous international exhibitions, including Documenta, Venice Biennale, and São Paulo Biennale. He has had numerous solo gallery exhibitions around the world. Mariani's work is in major public and private collections worldwide, including the Guggenheim Museum in New York, the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, the Frye Museum in Seattle, the Kansas City Museum of Contemporary Art, the Groninger Museum in the Netherlands, and numerous art institutions in Italy. Carlo Maria Mariani is survived by his wife Carol Lane Mariani and 2 children from a previous marriage.